In this episode, we're going to take a look at who our favorite heroic warriors from Cybertron are.
The Autobots.
Yeah, stay tuned. Hi, welcome to my side of the laundry room. My name is Rob.
And I'm Chris.
And we're going to take a look at, together, 10 of our favorite Autobots. And this comes from, at least in my opinion, cartoon, comic, and
Oh yeah,
toys.
absolutely.
Can't just fall on one or the other. It has to be all three.
I agree. I think what needs to be stressed with this is, so the launch of the Transformers was '84.
Yes.
And I can tell you with a clear conscience, because it seemed like they came out in '84 and they disappeared in '84. I don't remember getting anything until probably '85 or '86, because I remember, when they first came out, the prices were inflated.
They were.
You know what I mean, for what they were at the time. And then they kind of stabilized, I think, about a year and a half later, where it wasn't quite as bad. Because I can remember going to, locally, remember the old Murphy's Mart?
Yes.
Transformers were kept behind a lock and key case.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I can remember vividly having to go talk to somebody to actually get them to unlock the case and purchase Jetfire, as an example. Okay. But I remember that
behind lock and key.
Well, but I'm just saying,
yeah.
I can vividly remember those. That era, if that makes any sense.
Actually, my first ones were from Drug Fair. Just
Minicons, right? Or the
full size.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which that guy will be on my list, and we'll get
Okay,
to
fair
it,
enough. But anyway,
yeah.
By all means, you start, my friend.
Okay.
It is his channel.
The first one on my list is a mini car, mini bot, mini con, whatever you want to call it, because those are what I had more often. Those were at the price
They were affordable.
point of a G.I. Joe.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But
By
Huffer,
far.
I mean,
Great one.
I mean, in my mind, he was like Optimus's little brother.
Mm-hmm.
He was also a big rig, just much smaller.
And he was a badass in the cartoon.
Yes, he was.
So, but I agree, that was one of the best of the minicon, and one of the cooler ones because the way he transformed, with the head coming and the stacks coming. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that when you look at it now, you're like, ooh, that's pretty rudimentary transformation. But back then, your imagination,
revolutionary. They were revolutionary.
But I mean, your imagination took it and ran with it.
I loved him. I had him. I loved him. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it goes back to your point. Those were affordable, and they were more plentiful.
They were.
You could find them more frequently than you could some of the bigger Transformers. But yeah, I think he was a great one.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to, and not to skip around too much, but it's almost like they were, because of all intents and purposes, they were an import toy, but they weren't.
Well, you didn't know it. You know what I mean? We know the history now.
I'm just saying, but
but there was nothing like them on the
market. Low,
right,
and the demand was so high.
And there was nothing like them on the shelves. Fuck you, GoBots. But there was nothing like them on the shelves. There wasn't. I don't care. The comparisons weren't even close.
Right. But yours?
My very first one, which kind of... So my dad's a car head, and he could never really understand Star Wars or G.I. Joes or any of that stuff, but he could understand Transformers.
Very fair.
So one of the very first Transformers I got was Wheeljack. Now, my dad loves all racing. Wheeljack was a Lancier rally car. It was only really made... Well, I mean, there was a commercial version of this made as well, but anyway, it was a rally car. And he thought it was cool because it was painted like a rally car, you know what I mean? And had the company that actually made the car's name on it and everything. Anyway, I vividly remember getting this toy because it was a big deal. I mean, it wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you didn't get them. I mean, it just wasn't. They weren't out or available.
At least in our area. I mean, maybe Metropolitan.
Yes, no,
had
I agree with that.
better
Maybe
chance at
maybe,
it, but
we
in
were
our
out in the middle of
small town,
nowhere,
yeah.
right? And I just remember, honestly, the fun of it when you only had one was transforming it, putting it into the car, putting it into the robot.
Yeah.
And then putting it into the car and putting it into the robot.
And wowing your family members of, look at what this can do. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, but special memory, like I said, because it was one of my very, very, very first ones, and wish I had it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wish I had it.
I wish I had a lot of the ones that made it onto my list.
Amen. So, your next one, my friend.
Now, this was a character that I loved in the comic mostly. His appearance in the cartoon was pretty tight as well. But Blaster.
Oh, yeah.
This was I did not get it when it first came out. There was a family friend, the kid was older than me. So when he got to that age, I got the box of cast-offs. And it had Blaster in it. And the one thing that, I mean, was awesome was how big and clunky he was.
Yeah, well, he felt like a playable toy. Some of the early Transformers, you couldn't really play with.
I had problems with some.
We all
but
did.
yeah.
I mean, it was just an inherent flaw with some of the toys, I guess. But Blaster was one of those ones where you could play with him. You know what I mean? He was chunky. He was big. He felt like you had a real toy in your hand.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It was, for lack of a better term, but you know. And I liked the fact that he had the deep tape deck.
Yes.
I always thought that was cool, if that makes any sense. I never had him, but
it makes sense, but like some of the reproductions that they've made of Soundwave, I don't like it. Because it doesn't look
well, that
as
was an
natural.
inherent, but that was an inherent to the toy. Where Blaster, it is inherent to the,
yeah.
you know what I mean? But I think that's again another great choice.
But yeah, I mean, he was just a brilliant character
He was.
in all the different mediums.
And all of his cassettes were cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so I agree. A great character. Great character.
What's your second one on the list?
I fell in love with this character in the movie because at the time that I saw the movie, after being emotionally scarred, you know, I fell in love with Springer. I thought he was just the concept of the character in the movie was just so cool. And I have to be honest, I was a little let down when the toy came out. But that's beside the point.
I think that whole wave was kind of...
Since then, though, there's been some really cool Springers.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That have come out, and I don't often buy, which I know you can relate to.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But I love Springer the character, which made me buy the toy. And that was cool because that second generation... There was more articulation. There was a little bit more effort put into the robot version of the character, it seemed. So there was a little bit less into the car, which some of the first generations really had, or the really 84, 85 sets had. But I just think Springer was cool. He came with a sword and a gun. That was like revolutionary. I know we talk about that. But the color concepts of him, the different shades of green, always grab your eye, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And the cool thing about the old Transformers boxes were shadow boxes.
Yes.
You know, a lot of them were see-through or what have you. And he just had a very cool package, and he was one of my favorites, and still one of my favorite characters to this day.
No, he definitely is. I mean, his addition to the mythos, I mean...
He was a badass.
Yeah, he was.
You know what I mean?
But he got delegated to, hey, we got to go there. Let me transform, everyone get in.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, well.
Oh, I'm going to...
But his car was cool, his helicopter was cool, all those, versions that he had, the Autobot triple changer, I thought was just cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, anyway, you're...
Number 3, Blue Streak, which is the one that I first got at Drug Fair, which later became Rite Aid. But I loved it. I mean, that was... revolutionary. That was the first Transformer I'd ever seen, and it was a brilliant die-cast car that turned into a pretty good robot. But unfortunately, my problem was where his head, the part of the hood was attached to the back of the head.
Okay.
And it hinged.
Right.
That broke off. And yes, there were many attempts to try to glue it back, but it just
Set right.
never set right.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
But that was one of the... Well, that design was used a couple of more times, the
yeah.
transformation
Yes.
design and everything like that. But he is definitely one of the more quintessential characters. He had such a major part in the cartoon, at least the early cartoon. You know,
Very early, yes. Like him and Prowl
yeah,
and Sunstreaker
yep,
and things
yep.
like that, yeah.
But I love him. Probably one of my favorites.
But
Great
I loved
choice.
how the missile launchers attached to his shoulders, and they actually shot. I mean, they weren't afraid of putting eyes out like they were in the 70s. Or,
I mean, the
yeah,
90s.
70, well, 79 when Boba Fett came out.
Right.
But, yeah.
But no, it was a great toy. And yet again, the design of it was used multiple times, so it was a
Yes.
clean design.
Yes.
It was a clean transformation, and always the robots looked cool because the front of the car was sitting, you know what I mean?
Definitely, yeah.
So, I always liked that.
And I don't know if, with their origins in Japan, if it was more people sought the car more than the robot. Because like you said, that design was used a lot for different cars. Where it's like
Well, if you would,
reproductions actually, which they got away from.
if my father was here, he would tell you the ones that he would purchase for me were the ones that looked the most like the Pontiac Firebird. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Lamborghini,
Lamborghini,
Porsche,
whatever.
yeah.
Any of those cars that he could say, oh, I know what that is. You know what I mean? So that was always more in his head when he was buying something for me, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And my dad did not, that was not his MO. Mom bought, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know. But that was one that Dad was like, well, that's pretty cool, you know? You know what I mean? And that was, so that anything you get from your dad is always a little more special, I guess.
I definitely agree with that.
You know?
Yeah.
So, but no, I love that concept. And like I said, it was so good, it was used multiple times.
Yeah.
So,
And like the paint jobs
were cool.
Were like actual real car paint jobs where
Yes.
it had that
They were
glitter
metal and
undercoat, where
Yes,
it looked like a real reproduction.
it did. A lot of
But
actually.
then when you get to 86, it's just molded plastic of these Cybertronian versions of cars that were
True. Very true.
sci-fi.
Very
they
true.
totally got away from that.
Very true. I totally agree. Totally agree.
Anyway, next for you.
One of my also early favorites, and I loved him because he was a Jeep. It was cool because he did, it looked like a Jeep, like an army Jeep, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I loved Hound. I did. I thought
yeah.
Hound was the best. And he was early episode Transformers, really another key component of the series. But I just loved the character with the gun in the back. It just fun, and when we say to get two Transformers, at least like you said before when we were growing up, was like unheard of, and then if you got lucky enough to get three. But like I said, what happened is the price stabilized.
Yes.
And they became on the shelves far easier. You know what I mean? And I remember that was one of the ones that I think I actually bought myself.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
From saving allowances up or whatever it was. Yeah. But I remember him being like $12. Because that was, it took a minute to get $12 together back then. You know what I mean? So
you could get 3 Joes for that.
well, that was always which we talked about Masters of the Universe. It was tough to save up money to buy Transformers or even Masters of the Universe because you're always rationalizing, well, G.I. Joes are 3.
Yeah.
And I could get 4 Joes or I could get 2 Joes or whatever it was. That was always tough for me, in particular because I love G.I. Joe so much. So, anyway. But Hound was the coolest. I loved him. I really did. Loved him.
Yes, and he was a character that in the cartoon early on, I mean, he was, hey, Spike,
Yeah.
teach me about Earth. Hey, hop in.
Yeah, because they were always in him a lot if it wasn't Bumblebee because it got the opportunity to see both of the human characters because obviously Hound didn't have a roof.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It was always, yeah, I agree. One of my all-time favorites. Your next one, my friend.
I'm sure people would probably revolt about this, but Preceptor. Because
Go ahead. What's wrong with Perceptor? I love Perceptor.
Because when you're talking about the world of cool, a microscope doesn't particularly
That was a
fall.
damn cool toy, though.
It was. I mean, I never had one.
Oh, I didn't either.
Which I think is a lost opportunity to buy a toy that's a learning product as well. I mean, I could look at something under it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it had some sort of scientific
Probably not. It's
use.
probably just a
probably just a toy.
hazy glass.
Yeah,
piece.
that got bubbles in it or something.
But he had that huge cannon that would then be on his shoulder.
Okay, and not only that, the character in the cartoon was super cool.
Yes.
Because he was the brains when, let's be honest, the Autobots weren't heavy on the brains, okay? No. You know, Ironhide, they go kick their ass. I mean, that's about...
Well, Brawn's like, I'll punch something!
Yeah, you know what I mean? It was... But Perceptor was always like, you know, this is what I found out, Prime. You know, I liked Perceptor.
Or it's like, hey, let's look what's going on in space. And I can also shoot a laser out of it. Yeah.
One of the great characters.
And like we've talked about countless times before, especially in the He-Man episodes, was the color choices.
Mm-hmm. The blues and the red.
Those colors just popped to me.
They did. They totally did. Totally did. That was a great toy, great line. And here's the other thing that was great about Perceptor. The robot and obviously the microscope, they looked very similar to the character on the cartoon.
Yes.
Which you can't say for a lot of these. You know, we've picked on Ironhide and Ratchet in the past, and you know, which isn't fair, because in fairness, they weren't, you know, really what they were supposed to be in American toys. But he looked like his toy.
Yeah. I mean,
favored.
You did have characters like, I believe his name was a Trailblazer, all clunky looking, and he looked just like that in the cartoon.
Well, that's true. That is true. That is very true.
Where there's a whole episode where he becomes a stuntman in Hollywood. You know, it was, but it's fun. I mean, that's
no, it's just certain things I forget, and you bring them up, and
well,
I'm like,
with Transformers, I kind of have
a
little bit because my son. I mean, we watch them all the time.
Oh, I forgot about that. Sorry. Yep. There's your okay.
I
was actually marveling at your memory, but you know, you
from a couple weeks
ago. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Anyway, what's your fourth one on the list?
This is one that I'm sure it seems like everybody had him, and I understand why. He was so big, he was so cool looking, and I never put one and one together until many years later. But Jetfire, I think, was one of the coolest toys in the entire line, and still to this day is one of the coolest toys in the line. But what I never really understood until years later, and because I was an idiot kid, is it was a fucking Robotech toy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I mean, did you put it together in your head? I mean, I know I didn't until years later.
I mean, I don't want to say yes, I knew, but I did watch Robotech.
So did I.
Around that, so I don't
know.
Did I actually say that's a ripoff of Veritech?
No, that's
definitely
not.
No, I did not.
But that's the thing.
It seems like common sense.
But now it's like, I can't believe you got away with this shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the thing I never understood is why the hell he was called Skyfire in his one and only freaking appearance in the cartoon.
Yeah, he appeared a couple times.
Okay, but I'm saying the first time when he was like the Decepticon archaeologist or whatever the fuck he was.
No, they found him in the ice. Yeah. Again, just saw it recently.
Fair enough. Okay. But I just don't understand why the name change. I understand the facial change in the cartoon, because that would have been too much like, let's go rob Robotech. But I never understood that. You know what I mean?
I don't know. And yes, and they totally went off the page on his jet transformation. The size altering thing is totally out the window. Which, I mean, we get it. I mean, there's characters that transform down into this small, but you didn't really care.
No.
You know, but with him, hey, I'm a jet. All of a sudden, I'm growing 5 times bigger
than anyone else.
And Optimus is just, hey, get in, and you know, he doesn't have to duck to get in.
Right.
You know
I mean, it was like so. As a toy, he was awesome because of the back flipping over and being a different type of jet, and as a, you know, all the different things, all the red accoutrement armor that he came with, and all that. But I mean, okay, I'll go back. I remember him being $60. And the reason I remember him being $60 is I had to beg, borrow, and steal and make a deal with my parents where they would match whatever money I could get. They knew I was saving for this specific toy. Now, that toy came in an open box,
Yes.
had all the stuff plain as day, visible, whatever, and
In styrofoam, which a lot of them, I mean, none of them had really at that time. Everything was the shadow box.
Yep. And I can tell you, and I remember like a couple good report cards, helping my dad fence the pasture field kind of shit to get the money that I got together, you know, to get this toy. And it was a lot of, I mean, it was like a tremendous amount of money for a toy.
Right.
You know, but at the same time, moms were paying that for daughters for Cabbage Patch Kids.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean?
Getting into fist fights.
And getting into fist fights
and everything else.
But moms were doing the same thing for their boys over Transformers and G.I. Joes. They were selling out just as quick.
Yes.
So the market price for Transformers went through the roof. It really did. You know what I mean? But I can tell you, clear as day, that was a $60 toy at the time that I purchased it. I'm sure it was much cheaper later on. But
I got mine
specific memories.
for my birthday, I think, maybe Christmas, from my grandmother. And I mean, I didn't have any concept of money. You know what I mean? So I didn't realize.
Well, my dad ran a chain gang at our house, so it was everything was used for.
Well,
you know what I mean.
I worked on one, but didn't receive anything for it.
That's fair. No, it's not fair, but I understand what you're coming to. Yeah, that I get your point.
Yeah.
But he is one of the great toys. He's one of the standouts for obvious reasons because he wasn't really part of the line at any way, shape, or none of them were part of the line, but he specifically stood out, I think, amongst the other ones just because of his size and scope and
you know, everything from his landing gear being spring activate, you know, and
there was so much die cast in it.
Yes.
Yep, so much in him, but great toy.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why, you know, everybody still talks about the toy.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? There it is.
I recently saw him at the local vintage toy shop, and I'm like, hey, what do you got on that? I'll be talking to you later.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. It's unfortunate, but
yeah. Which I'm sure to a hardcore collector that ain't nothing, but
I can tell you with clear conscience, I hit the lottery tomorrow. It's one of the ones I would, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where, you know, I would definitely spend the money to purchase it. Yeah. Freely admit it. So anyway,
same here. I mean, I still have mine.
And I have mine.
It's busted up, just like you.
I'm missing the arm, just like everybody's missing.
Yeah,
right,
that's
exactly.
the thing. I mean, it was a rampant issue. It just wasn't you. It just wasn't me.
Right. And then the spring went out on the front landing gear, so it would.
Mine still works, actually.
God bless you, but mine won't stay in anymore. You know what I mean? So he's a jet permanently.
Yeah, same here. Just with the missing arms, so you don't want them to be like.
Yeah. All depressing, standing in the corner and whatnot. But anyway, your fourth one as we.
Fifth one, actually.
I'm sorry.
Hey, we're flying through it.
Okay.
This one, I'm going to cheat because I just could not nail down one. But all the mini cars, cons, bots, whatever you want to call them, from 1985. They, for some reason, all stand out to me as being revolutionary.
Okay, so which one was the 85?
Those are Beachcomber, Cosmos, Power Glide, Sea Spray, and Warpath.
Which were the best.
Yes.
Compared
they
to
all had great paint jobs.
Yep.
They all, I mean, were very unique transformations. I mean, who would have thought a hovercraft, which in real life hovercrafts are huge, so it's weird that he was a mini bot. Cosmos. I mean, I did an episode of It Came From where my son's newer version of
you showed me
Beachcomber.
Those are
Cosmos,
awesome. Those are awesome. The newer versions of those are great. They are super great.
They did a superb job with, you know, converting those over to a new generation. But I just couldn't pick one because when they all hit the market,
no, it's impossible.
It was
they were great.
Yeah.
They were all great. And the cool thing, I think, if 85, if memory serves, and you could correct me, or I know you certainly will, wasn't 85 the first year of the color change on the Autobot Decepticon stickers where you put your thumb on them?
I believe so.
Because I don't think the first generation of the 84 sets had them.
No.
I think it was 85 was the...
What cars and such from the 84 were redone.
Of
in
course.
that to try to eke a couple more bucks out of
Sure,
people.
because I remember you could still buy Optimus Prime at 86, 87, whatever, you know what I mean? There's Rodimus Prime next to him. I want Optimus. But that's just me. So, it's...
You start to get an appreciation for them when you...
I didn't say that. I'm saying when we were kids, did you...
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like Optimus,
Hey, he's voiced from the guy from Breakfast Club. Some of the worst voice acting ever.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Why do that, Daniel, when you can ride in style?
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
Yeah. But again,
yeah,
I
think, no, they're all great. They're all fantastic. Every one of them. They were all the best of the mini-cons.
And they were, I mean, I think it was 85. Anyway, I'm internally thinking here. But, like, the colors, like even Power Glide, that rich burgundy. Yes, we saw it with Thrust, I believe.
Yeah.
In that same year. But it's like, wow, that's a color
Yeah,
that
but
you
see, the
hadn't
nice
seen
thing about
before.
those were they were more articulated than some of the bigger ones. You know what I mean? As far as like joints in their arms and things like that.
Yeah,
you
for
know,
the most part,
they were
yeah.
a little bit more. It seemed. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they.
When you look at, and I ain't dissing it, but when you look at Bumblebee next to one of these,
Sea
yes,
Spray.
it is night and day.
It is. They were great toys. They were the great, and I totally agree, 100%.
I'm glad we agree. Number 5 for you, sir.
I feel that no list can be complete without the man, the myth, the legend, Optimus Prime. Now, this was a great toy. I got him several years after 84. I was probably 10 or 11, but I remember just absolutely losing my mind because of everything that he came with. It wasn't just you got a truck. You know, you got the trailer, and you got the little runabout, and you got the little satellite thing that came up, and the base of operations that opened up on the back. But it was such an iconic character. I mean, the voice, everything. I mean, it's so important that, you know, Douchebag Bay hired the same voice actor to do Optimus Prime to do the movies. I mean, he is Optimus, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so no list could ever be complete. You know, one of the greatest parts of the Transformers the film is him going and kicking the shit out of the Decepticons in the first like 5 minutes of the movie or whatever. When he separates from the trailer, he jumps in the sky, he's got his gun, he blows away like 3 or 4 of them and whatever. And of course we all know it goes downhill from there. But I mean, he was our John Wayne, for lack of a better term, you know what I mean? And I loved him, loved the toy, loved everything about him.
It was a character, at least in the cartoon, where, yeah, he lost an awful lot, but he kept his integrity.
Always.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
That was a valuable learning lesson, that you may lose, but you still have to look at yourself
And I really
in the mirror.
don't think they understood what they were doing when they killed him in the cartoon.
No.
I really don't. You know what I mean? But it did save us from another emotional tragedy. I'm sorry that Optimus died to do that. But, you know, if the backlash hadn't have been so great, we would have seen the death of Duke in G.I. Joe the movie.
But I don't think it would have been as severe. I mean...
You speak for yourself, young
well,
man. You speak for yourself.
No. Duke is one of the most iconic G.I. Joe. Hands down.
Mm-hmm.
But if he were to die, there's 100 other Joes that I loved just as much. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That were still around.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
It's Duke.
I know it's Duke.
It's Duke. Can't kill Duke. You just can't. It's
You're
not right.
You're missing my point.
I get your point. I understand where you're coming from. I get it. I'm just saying I'm glad it didn't happen.
I'm glad it didn't happen too.
But
I'm just saying.
Yeah. But that Transformers were like the shit for 3 or 4 years there, and it was, and it was a star that burned bright.
It did, and that's what is so confounding about it, because you're like, oh yeah, I mean, all these years, and then when you look at the book or the timeline, you're like, wait a minute, there's only 2 years that really stand
84,
out.
85,
Yes.
part of 86. part of 86.
Yeah, part of 86.
But then it jumped the shark in 87.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they became completely plastic. They became, you know, the
It
Predacon.
literally jumped the shark.
You know what I
honestly.
mean? They did.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, they became very rough.
Yeah.
But so many of those toy lines, so it's not fair to pick on Transformers, because even at the same time, G.I. Joe was getting a little wavy.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
Masters of the Universe was almost off the cliff. You know what I mean? They were done by 89
Right.
for the most part.
And the beautiful thing about the Toys That Made Us on Netflix, we kind of learned the reason why.
Yeah.
Because the original creators backed off.
Takara.
Yes, because they'd already been doing it for
Yep.
probably close to 20 years.
At that point, yeah,
And
because
they
we were getting
tired of
imports,
it.
you know what I mean? So
Hasbro took the reins and said, let's try to make as much money off of it, and they produced a cheaper product.
I also don't think the best minds were working at Transformers, because some of those just seemed like real reaches. Some of the Headmaster stuff and some of the, you know what I mean? It just seemed
I
like...
was never a fan of the Headmaster, Weapon Masters.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it just seemed like, you know, you had all these cars, domestic cars, that you could have kept going with Autobots.
Yeah.
You know, why didn't we ever get an SR-71 Decepticon in the 80s? You know, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because
There
that
was
was an iconic
there was
80s
not
aircraft.
right,
Yeah.
right. You know, I don't understand why some of the things that were done, if that makes any sense.
No, that
You know
makes
what I mean?
complete sense.
Anyway,
This has been our look at 10 of our favorite Autobots.
yet again, tell us who we missed. We know we missed people.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't even mention Dinobots.
I know, because that is a given, because
They're better than everything we just said.
when there was a mass slaughter of everyone in Transformers the movie, who survived? The Dinobots. Because they knew then you'd have real
And
anarchy.
honestly and truthfully, Grimlock had the best one-liners through the entire evolution of Transformers, all the animated. He was an entertaining character in and of himself. It was fantastic.
Which you haven't lived until you hear a three-year-old say, Grimlock kick butt, and run around the house.
Yep.
Just saying.
Rethink plan.
Yeah.
You know, but anyway, that was our top 10.
Keep being rad,
Stay dorky.
and we'll catch you next time with our look at the Decepticons. Peace out. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, hit the subscribe button for some more awesome videos. We also have a couple here on the side you might be interested in. And until next time, thanks for watching, keep being rad, and stay dorky.